From a forgotten laboratory curiosity to a global public health crisis, this is the story of how nitazenes became one of the most dangerous classes of synthetic opioids in the modern drug supply. Nitazenes are a class of synthetic opioids based on the 2-benzyl-benzimidazole chemical structure. Their key characteristics include extraordinary potency, often hundreds to thousands of times stronger than morphine. They were never approved for medical use, and they are now produced entirely in illicit laboratories. Their chemical flexibility allows for the creation of numerous analogues, making them particularly difficult to regulate. The story begins in the 1950s. Swiss pharmaceutical company Ciba, now part of Novartis, first synthesized etonitazene and related compounds as potential analgesics. Early pharmacology studies between 1957 and the 1960s revealed their extreme potency, but also severe respiratory depression and a dangerously low therapeutic index. The outcome was clear. Nitazenes were never approved or marketed, and they faded into obscurity as a failed opioid class, known only to a handful of specialists. From the 1980s through the 2000s, nitazenes entered a dormant phase. Etonitazene and related compounds appeared sporadically on the streets of Italy, Germany, and Russia, but never established a sustained market. In 1998, 10 nitazene-linked deaths were reported in Moscow, one of the first documented illicit clusters. In 2003, a single case of personal nitazene synthesis was reported in Utah. These remained isolated anomalies. Heroin and later fentanyl dominated the illicit opioid market throughout this period. The catalyst for change came in 2019. Throughout the 2010s, North America's opioid crisis had shifted from prescription opioids to heroin, and then to illicit fentanyl. When China introduced a class-wide ban on fentanyl analogues in 2019, it made the production and export of fentanyl significantly riskier. Clandestine chemists responded by mining old pharmaceutical literature for alternatives, and nitazenes were rediscovered as a high-potency, non-fentanyl option. The modern emergence of nitazenes began almost immediately. In July 2019, the European Monitoring Centre for Drugs and Drug Addiction received the first notification of isotonitazene in a biological sample, marking its entry into the modern illicit market. That same year, isotazene was first reported to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime Early Warning Advisory. By 2020 and 2021, multiple new nitazene analogues had been identified. In Canada alone, 615 nitazene detections were recorded between 2019 and 2021. Then came a pivotal moment in 2022. In April, the Taliban banned opium poppy cultivation in Afghanistan, and production collapsed by approximately 95%. This was seismic for Europe and the United Kingdom, as Afghanistan had supplied roughly 95% of UK heroin. As heroin purity dropped and prices rose, conditions became increasingly favourable for synthetic opioids, including nitazenes, to fill the growing gap in supply. The impact on the UK and Europe became apparent in 2022 and 2023. Sustained nitazene detections began appearing across the UK and Europe, with isotonitazene and metonitazene found in heroin and counterfeit pills. In May 2022, the first known UK xylazine death occurred, often in mixtures with nitazenes, highlighting the broader trend of complex synthetic adulteration. By 2023, clusters of deaths emerged in Birmingham and the West Midlands, where nitazenes were being used to fortify low-purity heroin. Between 2023 and 2024, the landscape shifted further. Protonitazene increasingly dominated nitazene detections and deaths across several countries. In the UK alone, between June 2023 and May 2024, 284 deaths were linked to nitazenes. Protonitazene was the single most common analogue identified in English deaths, followed by N-desethyl isotonitazene and metonitazene. Public health reviews described nitazenes as old drugs causing new problems. Investigations in 2023 and 2024 exposed the supply chain dynamics behind the crisis. BBC and other media investigations revealed Chinese suppliers openly advertising nitazenes on social media platforms, shipping powders to the UK disguised as dog food or other everyday goods, with payments made via cryptocurrency. Seized communications from UK dealers showed they were initially reluctant to use nitazenes, but were persuaded by Chinese suppliers offering cheap, potent product. The regulatory response has been tightening. Prior to 2024, only etinitazene and clonitazene were explicitly classified as Class A drugs in the UK. In March 2024, 15 synthetic opioids, including key nitazenes, were made Class A, with generic provisions later expanded to cover the entire class. Across the European Union and United States, multiple nitazenes have been placed under international control or scheduled nationally. In June 2025, China announced that all nitazenes and 12 other novel psychoactive substances would be brought under narcotic control. However, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and European agencies predict this will shift the market rather than end it, likely pushing synthesis towards new nitazene analogues or entirely different opioid families. By early 2024, the UNODC had records for 13 or more distinct nitazenes reported from Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, and South America, with 26 named by 2025. Reviews conclude that nitazenes are likely to remain part of the illicit opioid market for the indefinite future. Thank you for watching. This presentation was produced by TD Training and Consultancy Limited. For more information, visit our website.